But man, if you really want to be where you say you want to be, if you really want to grow, and if you really want to become the best version of yourself, if you want to reach your goals, if you want to achieve your dreams, if you want to have success, fulfill your purpose, gain freedom, you got to be dedicated and willing. You got to be dedicated and willing. Like you say you want it, but are you really dedicated? Are you really willing to do whatever it takes to get there? Are you willing to go work and grind when it gets hard, or when it's tough? When you're tired, when it might be boring, when you might not get recognized for it, when you might not be proud of the work you're putting in. Are you still willing, and are you still dedicated to still get up and go do it? Because at the end of the day, bro, dedication is simply just showing up. Even when you don't feel like it, even when you might be tired, even when you might be down on yourself, or you might be hurt. Because like I always say, bro, that motivation that you have to do something is going to come and go. That inspiration that you're going to have to do something comes and goes. Like some days you're not going to be motivated. Sometimes you're not going to be, hyped up to go do something, or hyped up to go put work in. You're not going to be inspired to go put work in. Think about it like this, bro. Somebody who's in the gym consistently, bro, they're not going to want to go and lift every day. I know I don't want to go and lift every day. I don't want to put my body through that every single day, but I still go do it because I know what my goals are. I know what my dreams are. I know where I want to be in my life. I'm dedicated to this. Like, I'm willing to show up even when it's hard. I'm dedicated to showing up even when it's hard. And dedication kind of ties in with discipline, bro, because when that motivation and that inspiration is gone, the dedication is what stays. Like, are you truly dedicated to becoming a better person every day? Are you truly dedicated to achieving your goals, achieving your dreams? Are you truly disciplined enough to still get up and go do something even when you don't feel like it? Like I said, it's not about the hype, bro. It's about showing up when nobody's clapping, when nobody's cheering for you, when nobody's in your corner, and still showing up when you don't see results. Still showing up when you might not see progress being made, but you just trust that that progress is being made because you're being consistent, because you're showing up, you're putting work in. Like, if you're only consistent when it's convenient to you, you're never going to be able to reach them goals that you have for yourself. You're never going to be able to fulfill the purpose that God has placed you on this earth to fulfill, because you're only consistent when it's convenient to you. You're only dedicated when you feel good, or when you're, hyped up to do something. You got to be dedicated, and you got to show up even when the times may be tough, even when you don't feel like it, even when you may be tired. And that's how you truly, reach your goals. You achieve your dreams. You know what I'm saying? And you also got to be willing. You got to be dedicated and willing, like I said in the beginning of the video. But what does willing mean, bro? Willing means you have to start surrendering your comfort. Being willing means you're open to everything. Open to failure, open to discomfort, open to growth, open to positivity, negativity, open to a direction that you might not have planned for, a path that you might not have planned for. You got to be willing to go through the tough times to get to the good ones. God, He can't use somebody who has a closed off heart. You know what I'm saying? You have to be open. You have to be willing to go through some tough times, to go through a different plan than what you've planned for. God moves through people who say, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening right now. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what path that God has placed me on, but I'm willing to go down this path in order to be where I want to be. I'm willing to go down this path and put my trust and put my faith in God. You got to surrender your own comfort. Like I always say, you grow when you're uncomfortable. And when you come to realize that God puts you in these uncomfortable situations in order to grow, and you're willing to go through these uncomfortable situations, and is when you truly grow, is when you truly take steps forward. You got to be willing to surrender to God. You got to be willing to surrender to His plan, to His path. Because when you try to rush things and when you try to do things your way, God is going to show you that you can't do that your way. You got to go accord to His plan. You got to go down His path. You know what I'm saying? You got to be dedicated and willing. Dedication without willingness is going to lead you to burnout. I'm going to say that again. Dedication without having the willingness to do something is you're going to burn out. Like, you can be all in on your routine. You can be all in and dedicated to what you want to do, but you're still closed off to God's direction. You're still closed off to God's path. And that's going to lead you to be stressed. That's going to lead you to be frustrated, because you know that you're putting in all this work. You're putting in all this time. You're doing everything you can to grow and to be where you want to be, but you're taking the wrong path. God has told you to go down another path, or God has told you to, take another route, but you're closed off to that. Without that willingness, bro, your dedication is nothing. Without that willingness to go down God's path and to listen to God and to trust God, your dedication is nothing. All your work is for naught. You got to be dedicated and willing. When you're dedicated without having that willingness, bro, you're only going to be stressed out. You're only going to be frustrated because you're going to be thinking like, I'm putting in all this work, I'm putting in all this time, I'm doing all these things, and I'm putting all this energy towards something, and I still can't make it. I'm still not, taking a step forward. At the end of the day, bro, you got to have discipline and you got to surrender. You got to be dedicated and you got to be willing. And you also got to be willing to start small. You got to be willing to endure the pain, the hard times, the failure. Like, you may not be able to run that marathon yet. You may not be able to take that big step yet, but are you willing to take the small steps in order to take that big step? Are you willing to take that first step in order to take the next big step? Like, your success and your growth and your progress is not always going to be loud. It's not always going to be big. It's not always going to be something that people see. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's going to be quiet. Sometimes it's going to be something that only you know. Sometimes it's going to be simply just a consistent obedience to God and just listening to God and listen to him in order to take that next step. Like, your success is not always going to be loud. Your results are not always going to be loud. So you got to be willing to start small. You got to be willing to, appreciate the small things, appreciate the little wins, because those little wins are what build into the big wins over time. But if you only want to take the big steps, if you only want to take, the big wins, and you want all the results and the success to be loud, like, that's literally showing your willingness is not there. You know what I'm saying? It's showing that you have that closed off heart to God that I was talking about. And like I said, without willingness, if you just have dedication, you're simply not going to get anywhere. You know what I'm saying? You got to be dedicated and willing. You got to be dedicated to the goal. You got to be dedicated to the dream that you have, but you also got to be willing to grow, to shift, to fail, to win, and to trust God with the timing. To trust God with the plan that he has for you. If you got one without the other, you're going to be stuck. If you got willingness without dedication, you're not going to be able to do anything. If you got dedication without willingness, you're not going to be able to do anything. But you bring them two together, bro, that's how the doors start to open. That's how the breakthroughs start to happen. That's how those steps get taken forward. That's how those goals start to get achieved. That's how them dreams start to get achieved. When you bring both willingness and dedication together, watch how much can change in your life and watch how many steps you start to take forward. But that'll be all for this video, man. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. If you like this video, go hit that sub button on the way to 500 subs. Appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And I'll see y'all in the next one.